Hi my beautiful bookish friends, I'm Bowen and welcome to my February wrap up. I read 15 books in the month of February and I've managed to split this down into 3 separate categories. I'm going to work backwards with this one, just explaining what the categories are. The final category is books that I read in preparation for going to Rare in Paris, which I made an entire vlog about, which will be linked in the description down below. Then the middle category is going to be books that aren't necessarily romance books, so I've got some fantasy, sci-fi, thrillers in this category. But the first category is going to be romance books that I didn't necessarily read for Paris. So we're going to have romance books bookending this, and we're going to have everything else in the middle. So we are going to start with The Nanny by Lana Ferguson. I gave this book 5 stars and I gave it a 4 spice rating. I absolutely freaking loved this book. This was in my searching for a 5-star video, which I will also link in the description down below. This book follows Cassie and Aiden, and Cassie gets a job nannying Aiden's kid Sophie. But what they don't realise is Cassie's old OnlyFans account, Aiden used to be her biggest subscriber, but neither of them actually knew when she got the job, and Cassie actually figures this out first and then really struggles with what to do about the situation. I love this book so much. I loved all of the characters in this. The family dynamic between Aiden and Sophie was just really sweet. I loved as well that Aiden didn't know how hot he was, which is a double standard for me. I'm fully aware of that. Because if this was the female main character that didn't know how hot she was, that gets really annoying really quickly. But because it was the guy, it was really sweet and endearing. I'm fully aware that that is a double standard. I don't much care though. Because, I love him, okay? I love Aiden. I thought he was so sweet and awkward, but also really hot. It's just the perfect book boyfriend for me. Awkward, but hella sexy. Big fan. And Cassie was so understanding and welcoming, especially with all of the Iris drama. She was so compassionate, and she facilitated the relationship between Iris and Sophie. Iris is Sophie's aunt on her mother's side, but the way that Cassie didn't necessarily try and push her out, she tried to actively invite her in, was just so sweet and heartwarming and kind of wholesome, and I kind of loved it. There was so much about this that I really loved. The spice was just top notch. It took a while to kick in, but when it did, it was definitely a 4 spice rating. I knew this was going to be spicy, but I feel like it was going to be traditionally published romance spicy, but no, this was hotter than I was expecting, and I'm all for it. I'm very much looking forward to getting to the next book by this author, The Fake Mate, which is on my TBR for March. Whether I get to it or not, it is a different story. But I'm hoping to, because I'm so excited for that one. Next is The Virgin and the Billionaire by Olivia St. Clair. I gave this one a 1.75 and a 1 spice rating. This is just a really short, 60-page novella, but this really just didn't work for me. It was age gap, which, as we know, is just not my thing, but it was very everything, which it's a novella, I get that. Even the concept of this book being that our main character, Mika, her deceased friend set Mika up with her brother. I figured they would have at least met before, but they didn't, and it was conversations about marriage within the first time they meet, conversations about contraception too fucking late, and I get that it's Virgin and the Billionaire, but there's a difference between being a virgin and being naive. She was just so annoyingly naive, and it goes on about how young she is and how innocent she is, and it's the one thing about age gaps that just makes me deeply icky and uncomfy, and I don't like that. So this is just a 1.75 for me. Didn't like it. Moving on. Next is Cupid's Peak by Leisha Cott. I gave this one a 4.25 and a 3 spice rating. I've said it before and I will say it again. I adore this series. Each of these are about 120 pages, just short little novellas. All of the characters have already met previously to the start of this book, so it's not insta-love at all, which, big fan. Each one follows a different holiday and a different kink in every single one of these books. This one is Valentine's Day, and yes, I did read it on Valentine's Day, and exhibitionism. My only real issue with this one, though, is with it being exhibitionism, the main character is, deeply introverted. So it just felt out of character for this to be the kink that this character was really into. I loved the relationship, I loved the smut, I loved the writing, I love everything else about this. The character just didn't fit this kink for me. And the last book in this category is going to be Heartless by Elsie Silver. I gave this one a 5-star and a 3 spice rating. I listened to the audiobook for this one on Valentine's Day as well. I fucking love this. This is a single dad nanny romance, and it follows Cade and Willa. And Willa is Summer's best friend from book 1, and Cade is Rhett's brother from book 1. I've read 2 books by Elsie Silver. I've read the first one and I've read this one. I think she is now an auto-buy author for me. I know a lot of people don't like kids in books, but I love kids in books. We've got the same mental age. I love children. And Luke was just so damn sweet. I loved him. This is proper Grumpy Sunshine as well, with Willa being oh my god, she's such a badass, and she's a right little spitfire as well. She gives as good as she gets. I fucking love her so much. And Cade is just such a grump, but like in a sexy, grumpy kind of way. This is the only time that I will say, like, Daddy Cade, so hot. Because I hate that word, like, deeply, deeply makes me uncomfortable. But in this, it's not like a kink, it's more like a little tongue-in-cheek kind of making fun of him situation. But I loved it. The smut in this series is just, oh my fucking god. It's that. It's whatever the fuck that was, because I forgot how to make words when I think about it. Which says a lot, really. I loved absolutely everything about this book. I cannot wait to get to the next one in this series. I love him. I love him. The girlies were not wrong about this book, this series. Top tier. Absolutely fucking top tier. Now we're moving into the non-romance category, starting with Two Can Keep a Secret by Karen M. McManus. I gave this one a 3-star. This is a YA mystery thriller, and from that information alone, I should have known going into this book that it really wasn't going to be for me. I don't read YA that much very often anymore anyway, because it doesn't really hit for me. I mean, it does on occasion, but not very often. And I don't really read mystery thrillers either. I don't know whether or not it's just I haven't found the one in that genre that works for me, but this wasn't it. It's not that it was necessarily bad, I just really couldn't get into it. This is a small town mystery thriller where 5 years ago the homecoming queen ended up dead at Murderland theme park, which they have since renamed after the incident. And in 1995, one of the homecoming queens ended up mysteriously going missing, and now the killer claims to be back. Our main character Ellery is one of the prospects for homecoming queen, and she's a big true crime junkie, so she comes up with all of these theories about who it was, and all of the theories that she comes up with kind of make her sound like a conspiracy theorist because they don't really make a lot of sense. I didn't really care for this. I had no investment in the characters or the plot or the mystery or anything at all. It just deeply didn't work for me. I don't know, I'm gonna give this genre another go, but this one's not it. Next I'm going to talk about the fantasy books I read, starting with Redempa by Jordan E. Fuego. I gave this one a 3-star as well. I liked the first book was good. This one went completely over my head. I was not paying attention to a single thing that happened. I read the entire thing, I promise. No idea. No idea what happened in this. I'm still trying to make the YA fantasy thing work, especially because one of my resolutions for this year was to finish 8 of my hardback fantasy series, and this technically counts. I just didn't care about this. I didn't pay attention to this, but I did technically read it, so it counts. But I couldn't tell you a single thing about it. So I'm sorry about that. It's not much of a wrap up, but I did technically read it, so I wanted to mention it anyway. The other 2 fantasy books I read are a duology, and that's Daughter of the Moon Goddess and Heart of the Sun Warrior, both of them by Su Lin Tan. I gave this one a 3-star and this one a 2-star. I listened to both of these books on audio, and it's very flowery type of writing that I just couldn't connect with at all. This one basically works as a standalone. You don't have to read this one. I mean, it is a duology and the story does carry on, but this one wraps up nicely enough on its own that this is just completely unnecessary. The love triangle in this as well, like, I don't like love triangles anyway, but it really just got on my nerves. It kind of pissed me off. But then again, finding a love triangle that is done in a way that doesn't piss me off is very, very rare. So there is that, but I couldn't vibe with these ones. They just didn't work for me, which is such a shame because they're very, very pretty. And the final book in this category that I read was Defiant by Brandon Sanderson. I gave this one a 4.25. This is the last book in the Skyward series. This was a brilliant ending to this series. My favourites in order, I think, would probably be Starsight, Skyward, Skyward Flight, Defiant, and then Cytonic, because I feel like Cytonic gave very middle book syndrome. This was such a great, big, dramatic ending to this. I love that in this one the big final battle scene was dragged out a little bit, because I find so often when it comes to the final book in the series and the last big battle, it tends to be over really quickly, and this one was dragged out just enough that it was just the right amount of details. I really love Brandon Sanderson's writing. I do definitely want to read more from him. I've been really interested in reading Tress of the Emerald Sea, but I want the really pretty, like, dark emerald green edition, and trying to get my hands on that is just about damn near impossible, because it's like £100 and I'm not paying that for one book. So I will read it, hopefully, eventually, even if I've got to buy the Kindle version of it. But this, I really, really loved this. I now want a pet slug, which is the most stupid fucking thing. I cried over the slugs. I've never cried over slugs a day in my life, but now I want a doom slug. I want one of the Taeniks, because I love them to death. I think they are just, they have my whole heart. The only thing with this series in particular is the relationship between Spencer and Jorgen. That didn't really make a lot of sense for me. That one sort of came out of nowhere and it stayed making no sense. There was no relationship development for that one. I don't see many male authors be able to do the romance that well, but I loved all of the characters in this. I think that reading Skyward Flight, which is the 3 novellas, is definitely necessary for this series. But I love this series. It's so damn good. I really, really enjoyed this. Now we're on to the final category, which is books I read in preparation for Rare in Paris. If you don't know what Rare is, it's the Romance Author and Reader event. There's one in Paris and one in Edinburgh. I am going to both this year. I am so freaking excited. And these are the 6 books that I read in preparation for that event. There's also a vlog in the description, so if you want to check that out, you're more than welcome to. But we're going to start with Good Girl by Piper Lawson. I gave this one a 2.75. This is book 1 in the Wicked series, and with most romantic contemporary series, I presumed that they would each be following different couples, because that's normally how it works, but each of the books in this series follows one couple. The fact that this is a book on its own makes no sense, because this is essentially just Act 1 of the entire book. So the entire series should have been one book. I don't understand why you would split your book up into separate acts instead of just having an entire book as just the whole story, because this just ended. There was no resolution, there was no big cliffhanger, really. There's some things that were left unresolved, obviously, but again, this is just Act 1. There was no reason for this to be a book on its own. So the main character, Jax, is a rock star, and Haley is the intern that is on her tour doing, like, the sound tech type of stuff. I just don't like the dynamic of celebrity and fan. It just feels really imbalanced to me. I didn't really like this all that much. Not enough to pick up the other books in the series, or the rest of the story as it actually is. But it wasn't bad. There's just no need for this to be 3 separate books. Then we have Paradise by J.A. Lowe. I gave this one a 4 spice rating and a 2.75 as well. I feel like if you're going to pick this one up, you do need to read the Dirty Texas series first, just to have a lot of the background information about the other characters. And I'm gonna be honest, some of the other characters' stories sounded way more interesting than this one. Not only that, there were certain things where I'm fully aware I'm the problem. This is the first book that I've ever read that was an open relationship. Like, they've had a conversation about it, they know what their boundaries are within the bounds of their relationship with each other, what is and what isn't okay, but they are still having sex with other people, which I'm fully aware is my own prejudice. Like, these characters have already had the discussion about it, they've already said that that's okay, but for me and my personal prejudices like that, just, I didn't like it. I understand, like, with a Waichus, there's still closed relationships within their little unit, but this wasn't that. I don't know, it just, something about it made me uncomfortable, and I'm very aware that I'm the fucking problem here. While the smut was there and it was good, I feel like there was a lot of scenes that felt really short. I feel like this would have benefited a lot more from less scenes but longer. I fully expected this to be a 5 spice rated book, but the spice doesn't really kick in until about halfway, and it's a lot more relationship development than I was expecting, and there's like this whole other plot line as well. It just was not what I was expecting. in any sense of the word. And I kind of get that that's on me. I just don't think it worked for me. Then we have Beat of My Heart by Avery Maxwell. I gave this one a 4-star and a 3 spice rating. Since I gave this a 4-star, I really did enjoy this. I liked the chemistry, I liked the relationships between the characters. It was a little insta-lovey for me, and I don't really vibe with insta-love. I think it's not realistic in any sense of the word. But there was also a couple of plot lines in this that just seemed to go nowhere. Like the whole storyline with her ex didn't get resolved, so I don't understand why it was in there in the first place. It just didn't really make a lot of sense to me. And I also felt that the ending was really kind of rushed. It was very big and dramatic, and for what reason? It was just really over the top. It was good, but it wasn't great. But I did have a good time with this one. Then we've got Manhunt by Vanessa Vale. I gave this one a 2 spice rating and a 1.75. As we already know, I don't really like age gap stories. They can work. Like in Heartless, that's a 13-year age gap, and for some reason that works for me. I don't mind that one. I in fact really love that one. In this, it's a 15-year age gap, which is only 2 years extra, but oh, this made me uncomfortable, especially in his chapters, because in his chapters, he goes on and on and on about how young she is, how innocent she is, and how old he is. And it made me so deeply uncomfortable. It says the word young in this 22 times. And it feels like the age gap was the point of the book. Not the relationship, not the characters, not the chemistry. The age gap was the point. And I don't like that at all. Our main character, Bridget, in this one, she is 22, but she's also really timid, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it made her come across as a lot younger than she actually was, and that made the age gap seem a lot more defined since he's 37. And also her boss. There was nothing about this that I really liked apart from maybe the writing. I do want to try another book by this author, but I want to try a trope that is more in line with what I actually prefer, because this wasn't it for me. Then we have I Married a Lizard Man by Regina Abel. I gave this one a 4.25 and a 2 spice rating. This is book 1 in the Mail Order Bride series, and this is like a really sweet alien romance between Susan and Olex. Olex is obviously the lizard man, and the descriptions of the scales and the lizard man and his anatomy were hilariously weird, but the underlying plot is what sold this for me. On her planet, she was a farmer, but because she's the youngest third child daughter, she's not inheriting anything, so she signs up to this mail order bride situation and she gets shipped off to Olex. Now him and his clan, they don't farm because they were enslaved to do it, so they have a lot of trauma when it comes to farming, so she basically takes that role on for herself. She's not asking anyone else to do it with her or for her because she doesn't want to trigger anyone else, but she takes on that role and she tolls the fields and does all of that. But I really, really enjoyed this story and the communication between these characters. I just really had a good time with this. This was just a sweet little alien romance, and there's something about that is just my comfort genre. I don't know why. I don't want to look too deeply into why, but I love it anyway. And the final book is Sapphire Spring by C. Travis Rice. I gave this one a 3 spice rating and 5 stars. I fucking love this with my whole arse, my heart, and both of my titties. It is so fucking excellent. The fact that more people haven't read this series is just a crime. I listened to this one on audio because on Kindle Unlimited, the audiobook is included. Oh my god. I was sobbing. If you've seen the video, then you know. I was literally sobbing on the ground. I was a mess, and I loved every second of it. This story follows Nasir and Mason, and Nasir used to be bullied by Mason and all of his friends when they were in high school together. Because Mason's father was really deeply homophobic and Mason had a big crush on Nasir, he didn't really know how to use his feelings, so he essentially used to take that and shove Nasir into like lockers and stuff. So Nasir now has all of this trauma from being bullied in high school and also being attracted to his bully, because that's like a whole thing. And while this isn't necessarily a bully romance, it's more of an ex-bully romance. The whole thing is just Mason's redemption arc, and him trying to recover from alcoholism, and the whole story is so fucking beautiful. I'm actually getting a bit choked up even thinking about it. I'm not gonna cry. I've done the crying for this book already. I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna cry. Fuck. God damn it. There wasn't a single thing about this book that I didn't just love. I ate it up. I love the whole thing so much. All of the drama and the messiness and the trauma and the way they worked through it, and oh my god, I love both of these characters so much, and the work that this author did in regards to Persian culture as well, and all the research he put into that with Nasir being Persian. I really appreciated that and respected that. Another cool thing about this is C. Travis Rice is Anne Rice's son. So the author of Interview with a Vampire, her son wrote this book, which I think is just really cool. And if you haven't read this and you have Kindle Unlimited, I strongly recommend that you pick this up and cry along with me, because quite frankly, it's outstanding. And that's all the books that I read in the month of February. I got 3 5-stars this month. Honestly, go me. If you managed to get this far into the video, then leave some form of cowboy emoji in the comments down below for Heartless, either the hat or the horse or something, and tell me your latest 5-star. But for now, thank you so much for stopping by. It has been lovely having you here, and I hope to see you in another video coming very soon. Bye.